Oh boy, do I have some pretty good questions that I'm gonna answer for you today! Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Q&A with AniMat, and this time around I have collected questions from all across the internet, not just YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, but also on my brand new Instagram account. And you have asked some pretty solid questions, and I will say right now that it really wasn't easy this time to go and pick like some of the best ones to go and answer, but hopefully with these 10 right here, they will go and make a very fun and very solid episode of Q&A with AniMat, and hopefully you guys will go and pick up on something as you go and watch it, or maybe you will leave off this video by maybe learning something and that you can go and adopt to yourself and try out. You never know. But anyways, let's go ahead and get things started by looking into our first question here, coming from Nyan-kun on YouTube. And Nyan-kun asks me, are there any movies that made you cry? Actually, before I go and answer that question, I do have a little bit of a funny story that when I was a kid, I hated crying when watching a movie, because back then, when I was a kid, the mentality I had is that I want to watch a movie so that I would have a good time. And if I cried, that means I did not have a good time. So I would hate movies that would make me cry, whatever the reason may be. And there have been a few times, well, actually sometimes, that movies did make me cry and I did walk off not liking it. Like, for example, one of them was like Ice Age, for example. It did make me cry when I was a kid and I didn't like it. And nowadays, though, when I do watch Ice Age again, I actually do enjoy it. And as I grew older, I learned to be more accepting of my emotions, that I understand that it is healthy and it is very important to be true to yourself, and that you must go and let out your true emotions, whatever you're experiencing. And when you would cry, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. So nowadays, if a movie can make me cry, I actually do consider that as a good thing. Not to say that I would go and pursue to look for movies that can make me cry, but I know that if a movie has the ability to go and make me cry, I know that's actually a very good thing. But with that said, I would say nowadays, it's actually very rare for a movie to make me cry. And I'm not saying that to make myself look like a manly man. I don't cry at movies. No, it's just that I don't know what it is. I guess it's just a lot harder for me to actually cry in whatever scenarios the movies would present. I don't know, it's mainly because I've seen so many movies to the point that like I feel like I'm more of a veteran when it comes to movie watching, where it's like, yeah, I've seen it all, so it's gonna be rare if you can have the ability to have your storytelling make me cry. But that's not to say that it's impossible for a movie to make me cry nowadays. It's just that it's very rare that it could happen. In fact, I would say the 3 recent movies that did make me cry would include The Good Dinosaur, and yes, I will confess, The Good Dinosaur did actually make me cry, Mary Poppins Returns, and Toy Story 4. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So, in a way, to answer your question, yes, there have been movies that did make me cry, but recently it would be very hard for movies to make me cry. Okay, so now with that question answered, let's go and jump onto the next one right over here, in which we got Filippo Corradini. Yes, Filippo Corradini on Twitter. And Filippo asks me, what is your favorite animation historical period? Oh, that is actually a very good question, and it would honestly be pretty tough to think if I would have like a full-on favorite, but I guess some people might say maybe I could be biased for this period because technically I am a 90s kid, but I would say the 1990s for me would be my favorite period of animation. And a lot of people could say that the 1990s were actually a massive height in or like one of the periods where animation really did peak in terms of the content that they would deliver and in terms of the memorable TV shows and movies that would actually come out. As we all know, the 1990s were a period when Disney was one of its best peaks, where they would bring out some of their best animated films at the time, like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, and a few other fan favorites as well. And at the same time, there have been other non-Disney animated films as well that would actually come out very strong and would be very entertaining and stand out in its own right, rather it be movies like Anastasia, The Prince of Egypt, The Iron Giant, and many, many more. And not to mention that the 90s was also a period where there were a lot of great innovations in animation. In fact, it was actually the first steps into really shaping what animation has become today, especially with computer animation, thanks to Pixar coming in with movies such as the Toy Story movies, or the first two Toy Story movies, and A Bug's Life. And especially when it comes to television, that is also a great height in terms of animation as well, because that's when we would start to have TV channels completely dedicated to animation, or highly focused onto animation, whether it be Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, or even in some of the Saturday morning cartoon spots. That's where there are many shows to this day that are considered some of the greatest or some of the most popular that would come out during that period, rather it be stuff like in, especially Kids WB comes into mind, because a lot of very noteworthy shows came out of there, rather it be stuff like Animaniacs or Tiny Toons Adventures, Freakazoid. Then there's also like a massive growth, like that's where really the big boom of anime really came in, especially in North America, where anime such as Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z really got popular. So if there is a period, I would definitely go with the 90s. I would say it's my favorite, and also I would consider to be one of the best periods in animation. And again, I know there might be a little bit of a bias, mainly because I am a 90s kid. I was born in 1992, by the way, so maybe that would play a little bit in a factor, but yeah, I would definitely go with the 1990s. Okay, so now with that question done, let's go and jump on to the next question, which is going to be coming from AKG Animation Studio Productions. And AKG asks me, "Hey AniMat, I was wondering, once you're done with Animation Look Back Disney Plus, what would you consider doing future ones? Would you do updated versions of Pixar and DreamWorks?" Okay, so just a little bit of a disclaimer that as of this Q&A with AniMat, I am still working on Animation Look Back Walt Disney Animation Studios Plus. I am still doing the parts. I have done most of it, but I still have a long way to go. And for now, I'm not really focusing on the future. I'm not really at the point where I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do next? For now, I'm only focusing on just doing Animation Look Back Disney, because again, even though I'm almost done technically, there's still a lot more to cover and a lot more significant Disney movies to go and talk about. So I'm not at the point where I feel ready to go and discuss about what would be the future of Animation Look Back or what would be the next episode. And also, on a side note, I would like to go and address regarding the fact that a lot of people have been asking me, am I going to do more Animation Look Back Plus series? Am I going to do more remakes of topics that I already discussed, whether it be stuff like what AKG mentioned, like with Pixar and DreamWorks? And I'm just going to say right now, I don't really think so. Or at least, like, for the next few Animation Look Backs, at the very least, I don't think I'll be doing another Plus series. And especially right now, I feel pretty content with the kind of animation lookbacks that I have already done, or like for the most part. And honestly, if I would have to do another Animation Look Back Plus series or do another Animation Look Back remake, the most that I could think of is just DreamWorks, and that's it. Honestly, I am pretty satisfied with some of the animation lookbacks I have already done, or like most animation lookbacks I've done. So for now, I can only say that I'm not thinking I'll be doing another remake anytime soon, and I'm not ready to go and really think about what is going to be the next animation look back after Disney Animation Plus, because I'm still working on Disney Animation Plus. I know that may not be necessarily the answer you would want to hear, but that's honestly the current status that I am in now. Okay, so now let's go and jump into the next question, which is going to be coming from Zirao Thunderstruck. And Zirao asks me, "Hey AniMat, I'm a huge fan of you, so interesting question. When working on the Epic Mickey files, what inspired you to do those videos? And are you going to make another video of forgotten characters that may or may not have appeared in the games?" Well, wow, that's honestly something I haven't thought about in a long time. I haven't touched the Epic Mickey files in years, but I think honestly the big reason why I did the Epic Mickey files was because of my love for the game so much. If you guys don't know, Epic Mickey, or at least the first Epic Mickey, is one of my favorite video games ever. It's one of those games where I personally feel like it was made especially for me, because it features so many elements that I am passionate about or that I love, and it's all combined in this one Nintendo Wii game where it's Disney, you got elements of lost media, it's like a dark, twisted steampunk version of Disneyland. It's just like everything about it. Like, at the very least, maybe the execution is not the best, but the concept of it all, and especially the story of Epic Mickey, is full-on top-notch. Maybe some of the best that Disney has ever done in a video game. So it really came from my love for these, for the games, or at least for that game in particular. And I really wanted to know a lot more about these characters, and I feel like considering that we are discussing about obscure Disney characters, I feel like I want to give them more of a spotlight so that people can learn who they are, and they can have more of an understanding as they would play Epic Mickey, rather it be discussing about the Lonesome Ghosts, or talking about Yen Sid, or the Phantom Blot, or Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. It was just really fascinating to look into each individual character. So really, I think it just came from my love for the video game to really go and fully make that entire series. Now, as for doing more of these, doing more Epic Mickey files, honestly, I don't know if I really could make any more, because I think I've pretty much covered the grand majority of all the Disney characters that have appeared in Epic Mickey. Now, I know that some people might argue that technically, like, there are characters that would appear in the backgrounds, but I was mainly focusing on, like, legitimate characters, because I know that technically you would have, like, King Louie making an appearance in Epic Mickey 2, but he would just be a part of the background. He's not, like, an actual resident of the wasteland. He's not an actual character. He's just, like, a prop, a background piece. I don't really want to go and focus on that. I just really want to focus on the characters that have appeared in the games, and that's why I don't think there would be any more Epic Mickey files, unfortunately. Like, as much as I would love to do more, like, the only way that there could be more Epic Mickey files is if Disney suddenly decide that they're gonna go and make more Epic Mickey games, and that they would include more forgotten characters. And that would pretty much be the only reason why I would actually go and make more. But Other than that, though, I think I've pretty much covered every single resident or every living creature that you could actually find in the Epic Mickey game. So that hopefully that would answer your question there. But I do, like, honestly, I would wish that I could make more and that Disney would actually make more Epic Mickey games. But it doesn't look like Epic Mickey files would actually make a comeback anytime soon. Maybe I could do something in the veins of like what I did with Animation Look Back Looney Tunes, and I could do more videos where I would look into individual cartoon characters and stuff like that, but in the form of Epic Mickey files, that might seem unlikely. Okay, so now let's go and jump into the next question that we got here, which is going to be coming from Saul M on Twitter, and Saul asks me, do you think Disney and Sony might partner up and do an Into the Spider-Verse TV show? If so, how do you see it working out? Well, I'm gonna be very honest. I think to answer your first question there, I would have to say abso-freaking-lutely not. Now, I know that Disney and Sony might seem to be like they're friends right now, especially with their collaborations with the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man, but trust me, when it comes to the subject of the Spider-Man film rights, this is something that Disney and Sony have continuously been butting heads about, and there's always a situation where one wants to have it entirely for themselves, rather it be Disney wanting everything Spider-Man so that they could finish their entire collection of everything Marvel, or it would be with Sony so that they can maintain what's possibly their most viable franchise of Sony Pictures. I do not see any circumstance at all where they would collaborate together, especially on something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is a lot more of a Sony animation property. So honestly, a collaboration would never happen, in my opinion. Now, this is not to say that an Into the Spider-Verse series would not happen. I can imagine that there is a pretty solid chance that maybe Sony Animation could actually do that. What I'm saying is impossible is the Disney and Sony to partner up to be friends a little bit in order to make more Into the Spider-Verse content. I think that's the part where I personally feel like it is a bit impossible. Okay, so hopefully I am helping you guys out by answering these questions, and that hopefully you have more of an understanding with what I'm talking about when answering these questions, but since I've been helping you out on that, there is one more thing that I want to help you on, and it's not necessarily on you in particular, but probably more for your computer. Do you guys mind if I could take a minute of your time to recommend you a VPN?
Yes, I know you're tired of YouTubers always recommending you VPNs, but trust me, this one is really legit, like great reviews across the board, and is being used by over 30 million people. Now, hear me out, I've been using it for a while, so let me give you 3 quick reasons why private internet access is worth it as a VPN. Number 1, it's so easy to use. In fact, it's literally just a push of a button and you're all set to disguise yourself as one of nearly 20,000 servers from over 70 countries, both fully protecting your identity with its no logs policy and lets you check out stuff on streaming services that you originally couldn't, like set it to UK and watch Sponge on the Run on Netflix, or set it to Canada and see Anastasia on Disney+. Number 2, it's available everywhere. PIA doesn't care what computer or which phone you got or what browser you're using. It can cover anything and everything that needs VPN protection. Plus, you can use your one account to put it on up to 10 devices at the same time. And number 3, and possibly the best reason, it's amazingly cheap. Like, if you go in the link in the description, you'll find a Black Friday sale where you could get 3 years and an extra 2 months for just $79. That's like around just $2 a month. And don't worry if you don't like it, it's got a 30-day money-back guarantee just in case. Seriously, this is like the true meaning of when Billy Mays says you got nothing to lose but everything to gain.
Trust me that in the long run, your security will thank me. Alright, but now with that little piece of info out of the way, let's go and jump onto our next question, which will be from Boo Show Reviews. And Boo Show asks me, what is your drive to keep working despite the small subscriber stagnation you've dealt with? Well, to be very honest, I do understand why you would go and ask that question, because for many people, especially in this field, it is very difficult to maintain some strong motivation or to have a very solid drive that would let you keep on doing what you want to do with stuff like YouTube videos. And this is especially the case when you would have some things that might not work as well as you would want, like your subscriber count isn't as growing as big as you would wish, or that the number of views that you would get in your videos aren't as necessarily large as some of the people that you would regularly watch. But for me, I would say that my drive or my motivation to keep making these YouTube videos, even after all these years, after like what, 11 years that I'm doing it at this point, is mainly because I love doing these. I'm mostly doing these videos for myself as much as I would do them for the fans, for you guys essentially. Mainly because of the fact that I do love doing what I do with these videos, that I love to learn about animation history and film history, and I love to learn about what are the making of these movies that I would talk about, or what are the fascinating stories that many people went through just to go and create this one artistic project, for example. Those are always fascinating to look into, and it's always fun to go and tell these stories to everyone else, to go and express what I have learned. And even when it comes to reviews, I will say that there is a little bit of a therapeutic sense when reviewing movies or doing these reviews in general, because it allows me to just freely, openly express myself and to just take my thoughts, and I would just dump them onto some kind of, not necessarily physical form, but a form somewhat that it is out of my head and that it becomes its own entity that I could just put it out across the internet. And this doesn't just have to be just related to my reviews, but also to some editorials when I would have like an opinion piece, or especially in my podcast where I would express my thoughts regarding some of the latest news that would happen in the animation industry and so much more. So that's really my main drive, is that I'm partly doing it for myself as much as I would do it for the fans as well, because people do enjoy it, because I enjoy it. So overall, if all parties are pretty much happy with it, then honestly, like, why stop there? So I would say that would be my motivation. And if you're missing some motivation, or if you're missing a drive to do what you want to do, especially something like YouTube, just remember to do, like, at the very least, if nothing else, at least do it for yourself. Make content that you want to see online so that you can actually enjoy doing what you do. And it doesn't just stop at YouTube, but also like even if you want to go into something bigger like the movie industry or the series industry, if you want to make television shows, or if you want to make feature films, like, do it for yourself as much as you want to do it for others, where you want to create something that you really want to see. Okay, so the next question that I have over here is going to be coming from Crystal Hat, and Crystal Hat asked me, if you could sleep with any animated character, who would it be? Oh boy, that's honestly a pretty good question, and I will say that's actually kind of tough, like, especially if I can only think about one in particular that I would want to sleep with. It's honestly going to be very difficult per se to really think about, because like, I would have a whole list of animated characters that I would definitely be down to sleep with, but not necessarily sleep with, but I would also say, like, I want to marry them as well. Like, a great example would be, like, the Disney princesses when they are over 18, of course. And then there would be other characters as well, such as Jessica Rabbit per se, or maybe someone like Mrs. Incredible. Like, I would definitely be down to go and sleep with them, but also marry them as well, because, like, even their personalities can be as beautiful as their looks. But in terms of just sleeping, like, it would be difficult to figure out. Like, maybe, like, some of the villains, I would say. Like, maybe, Ares from, Sinbad, for example. Or, oh, who is that? Like, crap, I'm trying to think. Who's that, like, evil redhead from Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer? Like, she's probably another one that I would definitely sleep with. But honestly, that would be a very difficult question to know, like, if there is one character in particular that I would go and sleep with. Honestly, it's something I would really have to think about. Alright, so the next question that I have over here is gonna be from Dan is doing school projects, and Dan asked me, what other jobs were you planning to get before YouTube? Ooh, that is actually a pretty good question, and I don't know if I did answer this a while back, but honestly, I did think once that I wanted to be an animator. There was a good amount of years in my life, or at least in my young life or in my teen years, that I was thinking that my life was set because I was aiming to become an animator, and I was fully prepping myself for that moment. I did actually go to college, in fact, in fine arts to really sharpen up my artistic skills to be ready for that moment. But when it was time for me to actually go and apply into an animation scholarship at either another college or at a university, unfortunately, I was rejected. Twice. And it can be a bit of a demotivator, and I did think that my art was not necessarily good enough to actually work into the animation field, so I guess I wasn't left with much choice and decided to stick with YouTube, and luckily, fate did have it that I did manage to turn YouTube into a pretty solid career that I could keep on working in order to let it grow and in order to make it more and more of a viable business. So at least I am very thankful for that. And I guess in terms of like the whole animation thing of wanting to be an animator and stuff like that, honestly, I did drop it, and if there is anything else that I would want to do other than YouTube and that I actually am pursuing, is that I do want to be a voice actor, and that is actually something that I am currently working on. And in a way, I didn't fully drop the animation industry by doing that. At least in some form, I can actually still work within the business. I just won't be drawing, I would just mostly be acting. So at least there is that. Alright, so now the next question that I have over here is gonna be from Omashu Hound, and Omashu asks me, have you seen any piece of animation worse than Where the Dead Go to Die? Yeah, to be honest, I knew that this question was inevitable because as the internet would constantly be looking for what would be the worst of the worst, even if you have something that is said to be the worst, like, there's always going to be something else that a lot of people want to know that they think is going to be, like, even worse than what you would say is the worst. Like, the internet is never going to be satisfied with what is going to be considered the best or the absolute worst, especially when it comes to the worst, because they're always looking for something that can go even lower than the bottom of the barrel. But I will say that I did recently watch one movie that would actually be worse than Where the Dead Go to Die, or at least a piece of animation. And if there is one thing worse than that, I would have to say it's Trollland. Like, that movie, holy crap, that is just legendarily bad. And I mean bad to the point that, in a way, it's almost as if the movie found issues that you wouldn't think would actually exist. That even Jimmy Screamer Claus, when making Where the Dead Go to Die, he understood, like, how to at least get that right. Like, when you would have your characters like look like they're actually standing on the ground. That is something that Trollland for some reason could not do. Or at least have your characters look like they could emote. Have their characters have face animation when they're talking. There's just so many problems with it that it's almost, again, it's almost as if they would find problems for some reason. Like, the only one good thing that I could say that ever came out of Trollland is just Dick Van Dyke's performance, and that's just because Dick Van Dyke is a comedic and acting veteran. So from there, honestly, there really isn't anything else that I could say positively about Trollland, but yeah, I would definitely say that is the one thing that is worse than Where the Dead Go to Die. But to go back to my statement from before, I'm sure that now that I have said that some of the worst pieces of animation is from Trollland, I'm sure that there are going to be people out there that are going to be asking now, like, what's the animation worse than Trollland? Because again, people are never satisfied when it comes to what is the worst in animation, because they always want to find something that is worse than what is considered the worst. And so finally, we have our final question, which is going to be coming from Hunter O'Laughlin on Facebook. And Hunter O'Laughlin asks, considering you're a big fan of Fantasia, what other famous classical pieces of music would you like to see put with animation, and what the appropriate stories would be to accompany the piece? Ooh, that is actually a pretty good question, and I mean, there have been a lot of musical pieces that have already been covered by not just Fantasia, but from some other projects as well, including Fantasia 2000, of course, and then you also got Allegro non troppo as well. But in terms of original pieces, I did think of this question a little bit, and I think I can think up of two of them that I would love to see. One of them would be Barber of Seville. Now, I know that when it comes to Barber of Seville nowadays, the first thing that people think of with that classical piece of music would be the Bugs Bunny cartoon Rabbit of Seville. But even with that one, I mean, as great as that cartoon is, and I do consider it one of my favorites, it's a lot of fun, it's hilarious, like, it is still relatively just a Looney Tunes cartoon, where, like, technically the story is just Elmer Fudd chasing Bugs Bunny, but Bugs Bunny always having the upper hand. I don't know, like, honestly, I have no clue what would be a story that would accompany Barber of Seville, but I'm sure there can be some fun ideas that you can think up with Barber of Seville. But also another one that I would like to see would be Moonlight Sonata. That is another great piece that I can imagine would work very well if you would go and include a story to it. And I do have a little bit of an idea of what you can possibly do with Moonlight Sonata. You can actually go one of two ways, honestly. Like, when it comes to Moonlight Sonata, yeah, you can think about something that is calming, that is more beautiful, per se. Something in the veins of, like, what Disney did before with Claire the Loon, with the crane. But, like, you can go into that route where you want to make something that is calming, that is peaceful. But another idea that I did have is something that would be, like, a bit of a massive contrast that is so much of the opposite that it actually does work out. I can imagine, like, a bit of a horror setting, per se. Like, make some kind of, like, supernatural thriller or horror environment where there's, like, a lot of things happening. Like, you would actually have some kind of, like, violent chase scene or something like that. Something that really, again, something that really does contrast Moonlight Sonata, but in a way actually works in its own right. So, honestly, I know that I might sound pretty vague, but honestly, I think that could be something that I'll leave up to you guys, that you can have fun writing down in the comments, thinking about your idea of what you can do of, like, an animated story connected to Barber of Seville or with Moonlight Sonata. Let me know what ideas that you got. Alright, so now with that said, that should be it with all the questions for this episode of Q&A with AniMat. So I would just like to go and say thank you so much to everyone who has asked me a question for this episode. And don't worry if your question has not been answered. If you have a question that you would like to ask me for a future episode of Q&A with AniMat, then just write it down wherever, really, on the internet, just as long as I can go and actually read it and I actually go and find it, rather it be in the comments on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or whatever. Just let me know what interesting question you would like to know for me to answer in the Q&A, and who knows, maybe I'll go and save it up and answer it to you in the future. So with all that that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!